What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Robbie Cassidy, and on this episode of the podcast, we are going to talk about the subtle signs of a chronic injury. And I want to talk about this because it's something that it's often overlooked when you're dealing with an issue that's gone on a long time. And you could also look at the subtle signs sometimes as the learned behaviours, things that you pick up and you adapt to over time, which are good at the start, but if you keep on them, they can actually hinder your recovery. And I want to talk about those because a lot of people do the right things when they're getting back to the gym, they're getting back to exercise and they're improving it. And I noticed this in the Back Pain Back to Exercise group as well, a group that we run, and the next one's going to be running in September. But when people start to really see an improvement and then they wonder why everything kind of clicks back or why they can't get that last bit, oftentimes it's because the habits and behaviors and the more, as I said, subtleties of what they need to improve on are kind of just lingering around in the background. So when you are dealing with a chronic injury, you need to look a little bit deeper. We obviously understand that the mechanical isn't always the issue. And when you're looking at more of a neurological issue, you have to take into account the conscious, subconscious. And both of these are going to play a role in your recovery. And it can be easy to get caught up with the signs that are right in front of us. Things of, okay, that person has tight muscles, they're cropped to one side, they're getting spasms. Oftentimes this is the acute phase of a chronic issue. And it's when everything is at its height. It's when you have a huge flare up and you can pick out, okay, I have a lot of pain right now and it's really like I'm restricted in my movements. If I try to bend down, my back really hurts. Okay, simple. You can say, grand, these are the signs and we can work on these. Now, the pain is going to increase as a result, and you can, that's normal. I think we all deal with that. As I said, movement is restricted and we don't really know what we've done wrong. But there's a couple of more subtle cues that show up. And sometimes these can actually be the key to fixing it long term. To identify the subtleties and to identify these cues, it's important to have someone else observe you and observe your movement. Someone who understands what's going on. Because I can talk through a few of them, but everyone is going to have individual characteristics and individual changes that could be contributing to it. So what do you do? One of those is, what do you do after you notice the pain? How do you think about it? What are the habits that take over in the background? The attitudes that leave us reliant on crutches, such as painkillers, hot water bottles, and even avoiding anything that may aggravate it. These things rarely become chronic by accident. Again, that's a key point to think about. It's not just randomly that something becomes a chronic injury. It's generally a mix of a lot of different things that are going on in your life at the time. And then as a result, how you experience this and how you go through the injury. And that's oftentimes why they stick around longer than they should. Some of the habits and behaviors that drive it, and these are really important to understand, because if you can fix these, you can actually make long-term change. You can change your experience. You can change the type of pain that you have. You can change how much control the pain has over you. One of those is constantly checking in on it. And you'll see this often when people get back into exercise, get back into the gym, and then they start doing something like a deadlift, where they do a deadlift, which is going to naturally work the muscles of the back, the extensors of the back, and then they will constantly check it throughout the day, and maybe you're guilty of this, to see how it's feeling. Okay? If you did a deadlift, you don't constantly check your left ankle for the whole day after it, because it's not a natural response, because maybe you don't have an issue with your left ankle. But if you wanted to start, it'd be a very easy way to start improving or increasing your awareness and your perception of what's going on around your left ankle. And as a result, you're probably going to notice a little bit more tightness and pain as the day goes on, even if you didn't have an injury there in the first place. And that's just because the body and nervous system can become hyper aware of that area. So we need to watch out for these habits. And that's a really, really, really key one. Constantly checking in on it afterwards. If you find yourself doing this, an easy fix for it, easy way to counteract this, is when you find yourself checking in on it, instead of just allowing that happen, change it and change the narrative. say, wow, that's feeling good. I'm actually feeling really loose. My back has really improved. And the more you do this, the less likely you will be to check in on it and become more hyper aware of it, and this issue becoming a bigger problem. Because when we're looking at the issue, as we said before, it's more of a neurological problem than it is the mechanical. Now, there can be a mechanical element to it, but we can have pain without injury, and one of the easiest ways to drive that is to be consciously aware of it all of the time. Now, the next one is holding it. Cropping yourself over to one side and just holding it, like putting your hand on it and checking on it, and every time you catch it, taking these breaths that signal to the body that there's a problem there. Now, that's going to be a bigger issue again, because it's going to drive it more awareness around the area, and it's going to drive your body to become more protective of the area, because naturally you're consciously protecting the area. Okay, so I want you to watch out for that, where you hold it, whether you're holding your arm on it or you're holding yourself cropped over to one side, waiting for the pain or anticipating the pain to kick up. Now, do you see what I mean by these are subtle? These are things that happen when you've been dealing with it for a long time, and you start to find yourself more, it's not that you have more comfort in the pain, because that's the wrong analogy to use, but you find your positions that you're more comfortable with are around the areas that the pain is. Okay, and what I mean by that is you find that comfortable position where you hold yourself over to the side, when really what the reason you've done that initially is it was a crutch to avoid the pain. Okay, and you're kind of leaning yourself over to one side, and then you wonder why you have tight muscles on that right side. Well, you've been holding it there for the last week and a half. How wouldn't you have tight muscles on that side? So these are the things that we need to look at a little bit more. And these are when you're looking for longer term change that are rarely addressed when you go into physio, because the physio doesn't really have the option to address it. They need to work on what you give them. And most physios work in that acute phase of injury. Okay, so this is why when I talk about chronic injuries, I talk about, let's say, chiros, and I talk about different physios, consultants, surgeons, bone setters, osteopaths. Oftentimes, like, they do some absolutely excellent work for people. But if you have the ladder against the wrong wall, and if you don't understand the real history of the person and what's going on, you will tend to treat this acutely, which you have to, because you want to get them out of pain now. But with the chronic injury, you want to get rid of it long term. You want to get rid of it altogether. And that's the difference. That's the difference with these type of injuries. So holding it when you feel pain and constantly checking on it, I want you to try avoid that from now on. And if you can, try to change it so that the body doesn't rely on that, and that your natural behavior doesn't tend that way. Another little cheeky one that kind of sneaks in there on people is reacting to pain in a way that makes it worse rather than better. And this is one that it probably develops naturally over time, where we catastrophize, especially as the pain sticks around longer. And we start to, like, even you could say constantly checking on it and holding it. They are two ways that are going to make your pain worse over the long term. But other ways that you can do that as well is continually talking about it to people. Always talking about how bad your pain is. Always telling them, oh my God, I can't do that because of my back. And I know this sounds like, oh, well, it's what I'm doing because it's the reality. But you're always reinforcing the idea that the pain is there, and it becomes a topic of conversation, because it does. This is the thing. It does become a topic of conversation. I know a lot of people that I deal with, or work with, I should say, that they struggle, especially as they get over the pain, as they get back into work and back into exercise, when people are constantly asking them about it. Well, how is your back? Be careful of your back. Mind your back. Because it had been such a topic of conversation for the months before that. And they have to go in and they have to change it, where they're talking to them and saying, it's 100%, I'm feeling really good, I'm really happy about it. And trying to reinforce that as well, because it can kind of become a bit of a fallback topic of conversation and a fallback pattern. And sometimes as well, when you talk to people about an issue like that, you'll hear a lot more horror stories around about how other people ended up with it, where someone had to go for surgery and then they had to stop work, then they were in a wheelchair, and all of these horror stories, which aren't really lending to you improving, because they just lend to you becoming more overprotective of it because you don't want to end up like these other people. So reacting to it in a way that is going to make it worse rather than better is really, really important. And the main one there is, honestly, it's the catastrophization. If this is the worst pain I've ever felt, complete agony, I have pain all of the time, every single day, and using this type of language, when you really check in on it, there's certain times of the day that you have more pain and certain times of the day that you have less pain. Okay? And it's really important to understand that. And there'll be people listening to this that will directly attack your ego, and I understand that. But I'm here to try help you. I'm here to try point you in the right direction and to try move it. So some of your beliefs will have to be tested for this to disappear and for you to overcome this. And I want you to understand that I'm not saying these things to attack anyone. I want you to get better. I want you to improve, and I want you to get back into doing what you're doing. And to do that, there has to be some harsh truths and harsh realities that we need to face to overcome that. And there will be a little pain along the way, and you will feel it as you go through your exercise and you start to get back into exercise. But a year down the line, when you look back on it, that's when you'll notice that, okay, it was worth every bit of it to go through that and to come out the other end and now not be able to, or not be dealing with the same issue over and over again. So the issues need to be addressed. And oftentimes, unless someone else highlights them for you, you're going to continue doing a lot of the right work for it, where you're doing your exercises and you're really consistent and you're doing everything right, but then you're reinforcing the issue afterwards unconsciously by these subtle cues, as I say, where you're constantly checking on it, you're holding it, you're moving in such a way that makes your body stay in this state of protection. You're avoiding certain movements, you're avoiding certain activities, and all of these things start to creep in. So to think very simply about a chronic issue, oftentimes what happens is the nervous system, as I said, it becomes overprotective. So giving you pain even when there's no injury. And as you come to understand this, you'll see how the pain increases after certain events and after certain activities. Whether that's busy times at work, where you're under a lot of stress, or even just times where your sleep is off, where you've slept poorly the night before and the next day you have a lot more pain. And which can lead us to making decisions in the moment that can actually cause the problem to get worse long term, where you say, okay, the pain is really bad on a Monday, even though you had been out Saturday night drinking and you didn't sleep properly on Saturday or Sunday night, so you have to expect it to be bad. So you book in an appointment to your doctor. When you get to your doctor, even if the pain had calmed down, you still have to tell them that it was like this. They give you painkillers, they tell you to go to physio. And if you never address those issues that are going on in the background, you'll continue down the path where you're looking for a surgery or you are looking for some sort of a quick fix to get out of it now. Okay, so there is patterns to it. And once we can highlight them and improve them, that's when you can really see a change. So, as I said, the chronic issues generally don't happen by accident. Generally, it's a set of habits, behaviors done over time that causes it to stick around. And for some people, they're more prone. Other people are less prone. It really depends on what's going on in your environment at the time as well. But even though you're feeling like, okay, right, I've tried everything, I've done everything right, there's always another way. Okay, and what we need to look at, this is really important, and coming to the end of the podcast now, even though you feel like you're doing everything right and it's not improving, there's always another way to improve it. But if you look from 1,000-foot level, what really happens with a chronic issue and why the body becomes so overprotective long term, it's because the body has lost confidence in that area. So to re-engineer that, we need to focus on rebuilding the confidence in the affected area, whether that be your back, whether that be your knee, whether that be your hip. And confidence comes in many different forms and can be built in so many ways. This is why you can make any rehab journey way more enjoyable if you do the things that you enjoy. If you are not just going to rehab, not just going to your sessions to do the same bird dogs, the same cat cows, and hoping that you're going to get better, or doing the same couple of rotations for your shoulder and hoping that it's going to get better, or getting massage and hoping that it's going to get better, and actually tailoring it towards working towards a goal that you want to achieve. Whether that be, okay, I'm going to climb a mountain, at the end of this. I'm going to run a marathon at the end of this. It doesn't even have to be that big. It can be, I can run a 5K. I want to get back in and play 7-a-side with my friends. I want to be able to pick up my child when we go on holidays. I want to be able to play with my child when we are at the house. That's how you can make it more enjoyable. Okay, it's key to understand that building system confidence lies on yourself also being confident in yourself. So if every single time you plan to do something, you naturally bring painkillers just in case, or every single time you try a new exercise and then you end up checking in on it every 15 minutes just to see if it's okay, then you hold it in such a way that you're getting this constant feedback and you start to move, so you're avoiding it, and you move differently in these positions that you're crapped over, or you rely on crutches to get you through the day. How do you expect your body to react? When we understand that confidence is the goal, we will start to apply different tactics and different strategies that will improve confidence, and we will get rid of the strategies and the tactics that are degrading your confidence. That's how you fix it. That's how you fix it long term. That's how you get rid of the subtleties. But that is all I wanted to talk about today, and I hope that it makes a bit more sense. You might have to scroll back and listen to this one again to get a better understanding that there is a lot more subtleties to it. And if you do have any questions, you shoot them over to me at info@themobilitytutor.com is an email address that's easy to get in contact with me, or on Instagram at @RobbieCassidy_. I do thank you so much for listening in again this week, and I have a lot more very interesting podcasts coming out very soon, so keep an eye out for that. And the very last thing on that is I would really appreciate if you could rate this podcast. I want to get it up to 1,000 5-star ratings on Spotify, and we are way off that right now. But if you could, I would love if you could do it. And all you have to do is scroll up to the top on Spotify or iTunes and hit the rating button there. Hit the stars button, I should say. And that's my only ask today. As always, if you do need anything, you just reach out to me and I will do my best to help you. But for now, I will chat to you all again at the same time next week. Have a good one.